It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders on his Afternoon Drive. What's going on, Alan?
Not too much. Really nice day today. It's out of practice. Was having a good day. Saw Art Rooney. It's always good to check in with the boss man. That was cool. And I was just kind of looking around, enjoying the scenery. The leaves are starting to change a little bit over on the south side on a couple of the trees. I was really having a good day. And then I was like, this is going to be a nice, easy day. We already talked to coordinators, got lots of stuff in the can to write. Don't really need anything for practice. Look over. I'm like, crap. Why is Justin Fields working with the first team? And then I was like, here we go. I guess I got to do work today after all. It's like, I couldn't just enjoy the day. Had to be something.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's where I want to start this episode. That's why everybody feel like kind of freaking out on Steelers Twitter right now as that news started to sprinkle in that Russ was limited with a calf injury, the calf injury that has obviously been widely talked about since the beginning of training camp after pushing the sled up a hill. Alan, I don't know that we can make much of this right now. Is this obviously we just got to monitor this and see how the days go, but especially because tomorrow's a Friday and you wouldn't do much anyway, when are we really going to even know what his status is going to be at this point?
I mean, I think we can read into this. Everybody should just panic. I think that's just freak out. Right. Just absolutely lose your minds. I'll say a couple things. One, we're not going to have any idea if Russell Wilson is going to play. Probably not tomorrow. I would think. I mean, my guess is that tomorrow what's going to happen is he's going to be limited in practice and listed as questionable. That would be my guess.
Yeah.
I that's just a guess. I don't know, but that's what I would figure. And then it's going to be kind of show up on Sunday and see. If there's a team in the NFL that should feel not so bad about their starting quarterback not playing in this game, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Justin Fields is the best backup quarterback in the league by a long shot. I don't know that there's I think that Russ was clearly the better of the two players, but the Steelers have not one of the better starting quarterbacks and the best backup. The distance between their backup and their starter is probably the smallest of any team in the NFL. Maybe the Patriots, I guess, but they might have the worst starting quarterback situation. So there's no. Vegas has the worst starting quarterback situation. But anyway, I don't think Russ not playing is panic. I think, honestly, a worse situation is Russ being healthy enough to play but not fully effective.
Yeah.
Because we've seen what fully effective Russ looks like over the last couple of years, and there isn't a lot of meat left on that bone to give. He is not good enough to play hurt right now. And if he tries to, I think that's a problem. I saw the guy practice today. He doesn't look that hurt. This is not like leaves on a cart. This is not like Ben hobbling around in a boot. This is a guy who looks fine. So, I don't know. It's hard to say.
And Van Jefferson seemed thrown off by being asked about, he thought that they were asked if he was named the starter. The video that I saw, he was yeah, he was named the starter. And they were well, no, he was limited today. And he's oh, was he? He didn't even seem to know that Russ was limited today.
I
was wondering if we should read into that at all, I guess is what I'm asking.
I don't know. I don't know if Van Jefferson was just literally paying no attention to who was in the huddle at practice, or if Van Jefferson was just unaware that Mike Tomlin was going to tell the world that Russell Wilson was limited before we spoke to the players. Was certainly entertaining that he was like surprised that he
Yeah.
was being asked about Russell Wilson being limited. I don't know if I read anything into that, but the idea that Van Jefferson is just not even aware of who was throwing him passes today actually
Yeah.
entertains me the most. Like, that's the one that I'm going to choose to believe. And then he was like, "Oh, really? Russell out there?
Yeah.
I don't know." Like,
Would be even funnier if it was Kyle Allen throwing to him. And he was like, "Yeah, I didn't even notice."
I want that to be true. That's what I'm going to choose to believe is the truth here. I want that to be true the most because I think it's pretty funny. And he was just like, yeah,
wait, Ben retired?
I'm in Pittsburgh right now? Really? Crazy.
So there was that. Russell being limited, also Darnell Washington as a DNP. I didn't expect this to. I mean, wasn't even limited yesterday or anything like this. Kind of just popped up today, this late in the week. Obviously, not good to all of a sudden see on a Thursday a DNP.
I don't think this is good, and I don't want to say that it's a major injury. I just because I don't know,
right?
But this is a guy who seems like is always banged up. Like, he didn't miss a game last year. But I've never seen as many ice packs on one human being as I saw routinely on Darnell Washington throughout the season last year. They were just like randomly strapped all over. He'd be like limping through the locker room with like 14 ice packs all around him. I don't get the sense that, like, I don't know. Maybe this is the wrong perception, but the perception to me is that this is going to be a guy who's going to have a hard time staying healthy, and that this is not like an aberration. And I think was certainly a risk that a fear that a lot of teams had about him in the draft process. It's one of the reasons he fell to the Steelers, and I certainly think it. Like, I was just in a conversation the other day, and people were like posting his combine times, like, this guy's a great athlete. Why don't the Steelers give him the ball? I was like, because he runs like my uncle. Like, I don't know. Like, I've never once seen that combine speed on the field.
Yeah.
In a Steelers uniform. Not one time. Not never. Not in pads, not out of pads, not running routes, not just messing around, nothing. He doesn't turn well. He doesn't run great routes. He's a gigantic dude who blocks pretty well. I think we should probably temper the expectations for what the Steelers have in Darnell Washington.
I can't remember who it was, and I wish that I do, because I'm not with 100% certainty saying that I believe this is going to come to fruition, but I think that there are some like alarm bells that should be going off about this. But I remember when we drafted him, I was having a conversation with somebody because I was like super excited about being able to get him in that spot. But somebody was like, yeah, he'll be a contributor for sure, but I think he's only a one contract player because of injury limitations. And I don't know, like, I'm not 100% forecasting that that's going to be his outlook, but to your point, like, this just seems to be a thing with him. Like, even if he's going to end up being able to go out there on Sunday and play, it just seems like we're going to see this on like a weekly basis where he's not able to participate at times, constantly has ice packs on him. Like, this is just the way that it is for him.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably more in line with what I would expect. Thought he was a very effective blocker, especially towards the end of last season. I still think they will be able to use him more in the passing game this year than they should be able to use him more in the passing game than they did last year. I just think there are some people out there that think like Darnell Washington like has like monster tight end like Jeremy Shockey, Gronk future in him, and I'm just like I don't see it. I don't see that level of athleticism, and I think the health questions are real, and so I don't know that this is anything serious. It seems to be a pattern now, and it's a concerning one.
Absolutely. Roman Wilson was also still limited today, along with Russell Wilson. And on the good end of that, though, Troy Fautanu, Jalen Warren, Corey Trice all participating in full.
I'm probably pretty comfortable at this point saying that even if Roman Wilson dresses on Sunday, you should not expect very much from him. As a guy who has
That's
not
fair, yeah.
had a full practice in over a month as a rookie, he could very well be cleared to practice and be a healthy scratch, because I think you're going to see Ben Skoranek up from the practice squad for special teams purposes. And so I'm sort of at the point where I've kind of written off week 1 for Roman Wilson. Even if he ends up healthy and even if somehow he ends up dressing, I don't think you're going to see a lot. Troy Fautanu, I think, probably will dress. But, man, if you watch this video, one up on the channel here, they were pushing the sled around today. Mike Tomlin was watching. He was struggling, man. Like, he's not moving it very well. Like, you compare what Broderick Jones is able to do to him, and it's like, that doesn't look like a guy that's 100% to me. Again, he may dress just because they don't have any. Look, dude, think about, like, the Steelers have one healthy tackle in Dan Moore. They have a pretty banged up Broderick Jones. They have, oh, by the way, if you look at that video closely, he's also wearing some kind of big protective, like, thing around his right wrist or hand in addition to his elbow now. I don't know where that came from, or I'd have to go back and, like, scroll through the pictures to find out when that happened. But, like, something else is going on there, too, in addition to the elbow. It's got, like, this big white, like, oven mitt looking thing on his right hand. So you're pretty banged up, Broderick Jones. A rookie coming off a knee injury that definitely does not look anywhere near 100%. Dylan Cook out at least 4 weeks, still in a walking boot. The next tackle, Spencer Anderson, who is starting at left guard because the starting left guard and the top backup interior offensive lineman are both on the injured reserve list. It's not a good situation on the offensive line right now. So, yeah, I think Troy Fautanu could dress. I would be highly skeptical if you see him start this week.
Literally, as you were going through there, I felt like I was in the scene of Dumb and Dumber. Our pets' heads are falling off.
Yeah. Right?
I mean, yeah, I like, obviously, I didn't know about whatever the additional thing is with Broderick before you saying that right now. But, like, if people are watching on YouTube and not listening to this and you just saw my face, like, I'm just like, what is going on? Like, what is happening before we even get to game 1 of the season with this offensive line that we've all, I feel like, spoken so much about? Like, not only do we expect them to be better, but how deep they were, and now that depth really being tested, and we're not even at week 1 yet.
Yeah, it's kind of a mess. Funny moment in that video also where Mike Tomlin is standing in the way of the sled and, like, yelling, like, hit me if I don't move. It's a big man's world. I don't know. He's just watching Mike Tomlin watch practice is sometimes the best part of my day.
Yeah. Well, it's a shame you couldn't just focus in on that the entire day, then it had to take notice of Justin Fields running with the ones. But Alan, the other thing that I wanted to do on today's episode is kind of go through some predictions for the season with, team record, a breakout player, also kind of just taking a look at the landscape.
Oh, wait.
AFC
Before we
North.
get into this, I forgot to mention Jalen Warren. I think Jalen Warren is going to go. I would anticipate Jalen Warren.
Well, what about Corey Trice then? If we're just
on Corey Trice
that,
playing with a normal workload on Sunday.
Okay. Now we don't necessarily
some silver lining
know what that role is. Yeah, for Corey Trice specifically, but be to the Joe.
May not be playing at all because he's a backup, but yeah, Jalen Warren, right. I think you'll see out there normal Jalen Warren stuff.
Okay. All right, so I want to start first, Alan. I feel like this, you can almost attach this to doing some bold predictions, kind of. But I want you to give me one breakout player from this 2024 group.
A breakout player for the 2024 Pittsburgh Steelers. I would say Keanu Benton is probably the guy. I think he can really become a player that goes from, like, promising to good, I think is what I would say. Like, he was promising as a rookie, but, like, the statistical backing is not really there, right? It wasn't, like, dominant, but you saw the flashes, right?
From a sack, like one sack last year, like he was around the ball a ton, and that should go up. But
you saw the potential and the flashes of the ability, but it did not turn into. I think regularly it did not turn into statistical production last year. I think you'll see that switch flip this year. I think he'll start to put up numbers in addition to looking like he could be a really good player. And I think they have a potential star on the defensive line in Keanu Benton. I think he's their best young defensive lineman they've had since Stephon Tuitt. He might end up having a better career than Stephon Tuitt, and I don't think that's a crazy thing to say.
Yeah.
And Tuitt's pretty damn good. So
yeah.
I think that's, to me, that's the potential breakout guy here. There are certainly others, but I think I feel the best about that one.
I'm very bullish on Keanu Benton. I did this exact same exercise, or we did this exact same exercise, you should say, on the Around the 412 Steelers show, but that doesn't come out until tomorrow. That was Tyler's pick, so I couldn't regurgitate it with my selection. But let me ask you, if it's not, if you say that this guy can't count, I'll accept it and I'll pick somebody else. But can Nick Herbig still be classified as this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because first off, I mean, if they gave away gold jackets for the preseason, he's in the Hall of Fame. He's getting his bust done right now. But I feel like there's another level there, and I think that we see them find a way to get all three guys on the field a lot more this year. So I think you see a huge jump in the production because of that, despite us already feeling very good about how good of a player is. I feel like it kind of probably is in that same boat as Keanu Benton, where it's like you saw last year the flashes and how good of a player he could be, but maybe the opportunity not so much there as you expect there to be in year two, and maybe he finishes more plays this year. The other guy I thought about, we just mentioned, was like, and I don't know what the opportunity is going to look like for him, but I feel like Corey Trice, like if Dante Jackson does suffer an injury, knock on wood that doesn't happen, or if he ends up seeing time and dime, like I think there's an opportunity that could potentially arise for him. But yeah, on the surface, my guy is Nick Herbig.
I think both Trice and Herbig, I really like his young players. I just think it's less clear like how much playing time they're going to be able to get.
Right.
Whereas Benton, I think, is going to play an awful lot. And so I think that's, to me, why I like Benton there. And if you make me pick a player on the offense, I think I will. Like, I don't know that this is like, this could be you may reject this pick, but like, can I pick Zach Frazier? I know he was a very highly drafted rookie, and like there are high expectations for him, but like I think he's going to be pretty good.
Yeah. No, I agree. The thing for me, like I'm sitting here, I'm like, I don't know who I'd pick on the offensive side of the ball, like because a lot of people, I think that's fair, even though he's a rookie to include him. But if we were excluding rookies, where do you even turn to? Like, I know that we're
Calvin
both pretty
Austin?
Bullish on. Yeah.
Like, that's really the only other one I could, like, Connor Hayward, maybe? I don't know. Like, I think Calvin Austin is probably the only other one that I have a feeling about. I think he'll pretty comfortably eclipse his last year's numbers.
Okay, that's fair. In a case like Pat, though, where he had the rookie year that he did, but then hasn't had the production the next two, we both think he's far going to exceed that.
I think he'll be better than his rookie year this year. Yeah.
Okay. So could he be included in that potentially? In that category?
I don't think it's a breakout because he's already proven he can be good. It's a he's got to stay healthy. I think that's a big thing for Pat. Like I'm not worried about his. I talked a lot about Pat this morning on Morning Rush, but I think for me the question about Pat is really only about health. I think he's going to get a ton of targets and a ton of numbers, and I think he's going to have a very good year.
Absolutely. Okay. Now this is where the people are either going to be very happy or very upset with us, Alan. The team record.
Okay. I haven't written this yet, so this is breaking news. This is the first time I'm going on the record here with a prediction. We're kind of going back and forth about whether we want to do this today or tomorrow. I'm going to write it for the site tomorrow, but we'll speak it here first. And I've been going back and forth personally between 10-7 and 9-8 for this team. I picked Tyler last year. I missed Ty. I felt like they were gonna take a big jump, and they did take a little step forward. They did not take a big jump this year. I don't see a huge jump. I see another step forward, but I also see a much more difficult schedule. I'm still I'm still unsure about what the right answer is here, but I'm gonna say 9-8. I do think I said yesterday. I do think they will have a much better chance of winning a playoff game should they get there than they have the last 2 times they played in the postseason. I think they could be a team that surprises some people, but I don't like the way the schedule lines up. I think they're going to have to be really efficient against the bad teams on their schedule, which they have not always been under Mike Tomlin. And I do think, though, they can hang in the AFC North. Like, I'm going to pick them 9-8. I think they'll go 3-3 in the division. I think that's a very reasonable prediction.
Last year, I had them at 10-7, and they finished 10-7. But I would not have predicted how they got there to 10-7. We've talked about that a lot. Like, they had the fortune of not seeing Joe Burrow last year. Lamar obviously didn't play in the last game of the season. They saw a lot of backup quarterbacks. You also probably wouldn't have predicted them to lose 3 in a row to Arizona, New England, and Indy. So it's just they still got to 10-7 somehow, just not the path that I foresaw. I think this team's better than last year's team, but I still think they're going to finish 10-7. And still be right within that mix that they're normally in, like hovering in a wild card spot. Is that going to be good enough to get in? We got to wait until the final week of the season to see.
Yeah, I think if they're 9-8 and they go 3-3 in the AFC North, they'll get into the playoffs. I think that's good enough.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go to that then. How we kind of see the AFC North shaking out. How do you see the Steelers? You said 3-3 in the division. But where does 9-8 put them within the AFC North ranks?
I'll say that puts them tied for second with Baltimore.
Okay.
With Cincinnati winning the division and Cleveland missing the playoffs. I think Cleveland's in some trouble, man. I don't know. They have talent, but it's Chubb coming back. Their offensive line has been banged up a lot. That's sort of the real strength of their offense. I think Watson is more than likely the guy that we've seen. I don't think you're going to see some kind of miraculous return to form for him. I guess Judy is an improvement, but I'm not sure they have the offensive line or the quarterback to really take advantage of that improvement. I do like their defense. I think they'll muck it up and they'll win some games because they're able to keep things close, but I think they're going to struggle to score. So, I think the Bengals could be the best team in the AFC. They certainly, I think, are the best team in the division. I think the Steelers can play with them, but I think they'll win the division. They're going to stay healthy, but I think they have the best chance as things stand right now.
Yeah, this is a toss-up for me. I went with the Ravens to win the division. It's funny because you have the Steelers and Ravens tied with the same record. I have the Steelers and Bengals tied with the same record. Also have the Browns last. For basically the reason you said last year, don't get me wrong, I'm still a believer for the most part in that defense, but I think they can't play at that same level. Again, I think there's going to be a little bit of a step back, in my opinion, for them on the defensive side of the football. And as many things as went wrong for them last year, they also kind of went right in the sense that if that happens again at quarterback, you're not getting a performance like they had from Joe Flacco behind Deshaun Watson last year. So I have them last, Pittsburgh and Cincinnati tied for second, Baltimore winning the division, but I think it's by a game. I think they're going to all be so closely lumped, and once again, we have 3 teams in the AFC North in the playoffs.
I've been hoping for many years that we could end up with a 4-way tie in the AFC North. And I really think this.
Yeah, you mentioned this. You mentioned this just last year, and there was a point in time where
could be the year. I don't know. It doesn't. I just think, to me, I think Cincinnati is a little too boom or bust. If Burrow's healthy and the wide receivers stay healthy, what's going to slow that team down? I don't know. But also, if Chase holds out or gets hurt or whatever, and Burrow doesn't look as good as he did before the injuries, their fortunes are mostly tied up in 3 guys. And so I think there's always a wide variance there. Whereas the Steelers, if you tell me right now that this calf injury has Russell Wilson out for the season, I am not changing that prediction. Like I still think they're 9-8. Like
right.
Maybe I would sort of walk back to feeling good about them winning a playoff game part of it, but like I don't think I would change things.
So to me with the Bengals, the thing is like the defense, right? Like they were really good 2 years ago. Last year didn't see that same level. I still like their linebackers a ton. I know they had some injuries last year and maybe like an adjustment period after losing Jesse Bates, but their safeties weren't good last year. I do like their corners quite a bit. DJ Turner, Cam Taylor-Britt, I think they're both very good players. But to me, that's where the questions are for the Cincinnati is on the back end of that defense.
I think that's fair. I think their linebackers are a lot better than they played last year.
They are. Yeah. Logan Wilson, Jermaine Pratt. I mean, they're both very good players.
But they were not very good last year. I think they can be a lot better. They got to keep them clean.
Yeah. And they lost one of their DJ Reader went to Detroit.
Yes.
He was hurt last year. He was part of he got hurt last year too. So like I said, they suffered some injuries on the defense side of the ball, but he got hurt and they don't have him now. So yeah, I mean, if I have questions, obviously along with what's Joe Burrow going to look like post that wrist injury, but assuming that he's back to form, I wouldn't have questions about the offensive side of the ball. It'd be about the defensive side of the ball. But I have Lou Anarumo to me is one of the better DCs in football. So I think he'll figure it out, even if there is maybe not the surplus of talent on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I think that's fair. There's something I want to talk about that we didn't get to yesterday in terms of the negativity. And I think something as I was thinking about it and reading some of the comments, I feel like it's part that plays into this. Especially maybe of like Steelers fans of your generation.
Oh boy, yeah.
And I think it's this, like, no one in the NFL that does not have a legit elite franchise quarterback feels particularly good about their chances. Like, even the 49ers and the Eagles, who I do not put in that category, but we mentioned yesterday as teams that I think are very well run and are very viable blueprints for the Steelers. Like, they don't, I mean, those two teams have plenty of regular season success and plenty of postseason heartbreak to show for it, right? And even when the Steelers had Ben Roethlisberger as their quarterback, who was an elite franchise quarterback that's going to the Hall of Fame, no doubter, they had Tom Brady and Peyton Manning in the same conference, and they did not feel good about going into those places and winning in December and January. But there is a different level of hopelessness, I think, about your chances of getting through into the postseason when you don't have one of those guys and you don't have one of those sort of elite overall teams. And I think there are a lot of Steeler fans that have not ever known that feeling, that did not remember going into the postseason with Mike Tomczak or Tommy Maddox or Cordell Stewart or Neil O'Donnell, and sort of knowing that you didn't really have the guy to get you there. And certainly not from Steelers fans who remember how long it took to go from Bradshaw to Roethlisberger. That is not an abnormal length of time between franchise quarterbacks for one team. In fact, it's abnormal for one team to have ever had two quarterbacks of that caliber.
Yeah, and then you got the Packers.
How many franchises have had two quarterbacks at least as good as Terry Bradshaw and Ben Roethlisberger? 6
Packers?
or 7, maybe. The Packers.
Yeah, the Packers.
Colts. But there are no Colts fans in Indianapolis that are feeling good about Johnny Unitas. The Broncos, sure. The 49ers, obviously. But there are relatively few of those teams that have even the Pats. Sure, they had Brady. The whole rest of the quarterbacks of the New England Patriots ever, and they went to the Super Bowl with 2 other guys, don't add up to crap, like comparatively. And so I think that is thinking about it for a day, I think that part of it is like there are a lot of Steelers fans that are learning how the rest of the world lives at the quarterback position after having only known Ben Roethlisberger.
Right. It's been a few years now, but like you said, like that adjustment period, I do still think is taking place. Like I see the conversation on Twitter all the time, like, oh, this is what it's like. Oh, this sucks. Now we know how it feels. Like those types of sentiments being shared now because of not having the answer to the most important position, like that guy. And again, even if you feel good about your quarterback, even if you feel like you have a pretty good player there, that's not enough. Like back in the day, we had Brady and Manning. Now you got Mahomes. So
yeah, you can feel pretty good. You can have Josh Allen.
Yeah,
you can have Josh Allen with a pretty good team around him and go in Kansas City and get your butt whipped. Like that can happen.
Mm-hmm. That's what I say. I was talking with a Bill. This was going back to last year when we played them in the playoffs, and the person's a Bills fan, and they were like, "Don't get me wrong. Like I think that we definitely can win one within this window. But imagine if they don't. Like imagine if Josh Allen just never wins a Super Bowl, and it's possible for that to happen. And the way that we would look back on it and say, wow, this guy didn't even win one. Dan
Marino never won one. John Elway took him a really long time to win one. Like those are great quarterbacks. That alone, and both of those guys came up in an era of great quarterbacks. They had to go through each other. They're in the same conference, and in the same conference with Jim Kelly, and they would have had to play against Joe Montana in the Super Bowl like that. Like even if you have one of those guys, and if you don't have one of those guys, it's tough. And it could be a really, really long time before the Steelers get another one of those guys. Like, you should not expect that to happen quickly. It would be very fortuitous if it happens in 5 years or something like that.
Mm-hmm. That's why I mentioned the Packers, because, like, if Jordan Love continues to play the way that he looked last year, imagine that going from Favre to Rodgers to Love without really skipping a beat. If Jordan Love is that guy, he got paid like he is that guy already, but we'll see how he continues to play. But the last thing that I want to wrap up here with, because we're talking about the quarterbacks, how do you feel like the state of the position is right now? Like in terms of what you see talent wise in the league right now, as opposed to past years. You have like these guys at the top, like we're talking about Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, or Jackson, Rodgers obviously still playing, but how do you see the talent level right now compared to maybe when the Steelers did win their Super Bowls?
I think there are fewer guys in that top group. Like there were, you had Brady, you had Peyton, you had Ben, you had Drew Brees, you had Rodgers at the end of that part, you had Favre at the beginning of that part. They were all like really good quarterbacks that you felt like because their team had them, they were a threat to win the Super Bowl every year. I'm not sure there are that many of those quarterbacks now. There might be 4. And I think back then the middle class had some guys who were obviously Eli Manning won 2 Super Bowls. But you had your Cam Newtons he was a very dangerous player, even if he never really had like a Super Bowl team. I think the difference is though that now, like I see, I think Jordan Love is way overpaid. I think Jordan Love is a good player. I think Tua is way overpaid. I think Aaron Rodgers is way overpaid. And I think it's going to be harder if you're a team that has one of those next tier guys. Like the Giants were able to punch above their weight class with Eli Manning, but Eli was never making as much as Tom. So they were able to have advantages in other places. If you're paying Tua more than you're paying Mahomes, how do you ever expect to beat them? How are you ever going to beat the Chiefs if you're paying your worst quarterback more than they're paying him? Like you can't. You're trying to win a race, dragging an anchor. And so I think it's going to cause those top guys to have more success in this era. I think you're going to see Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, maybe Lamar, you can put them in that group, consistently have more success than, say, Ben and Manning and Brady and those guys did. Not that they didn't have a lot of it, but like I think those guys it'll be a little easier for them to stay at the top since the next group is just overpaying their quarterbacks. I really think some team is going to come along and just say we're not going to participate in that and try to win without one and try to build a team that is so good around the quarterback. I mean, you could argue the 49ers are doing that right now. We'll see if they are willing to pay Brock Purdy. I really believe that they may not. That they will say, we did not do this because of you. We are not going to pay you. We can find another one of you. And I think that would be the right choice for them to make. They should not pay Brock Purdy. He's not very good. Like, they're not good because of him. And I will have a lot of respect for John Lynch and
I want to
Kyle
see it
Shanahan
happen.
if that's the road they take. But I think that's what they should do. Like, if I'm looking at the 49ers and I say, what's more important to our success, Deebo Samuel or Brock Purdy, Trent Williams or Brock Purdy, Brandon Ayuk or Brock Purdy, Bosa or Purdy, McCaffrey or Purdy, like, where do you have to – like, I'm pretty far down that list before I start to say Brock Purdy's more important. Certainly not more important than any of those guys I just named.
Sure.
George Kittle. Like, I would not be paying him like a franchise quarterback, and I think they may not.
I want that to happen a lot, actually. And honestly, like with the way that they've spent lately, maybe that's kind of what they've been planning to do.
I mean, either that or they're going to have to trade somebody. They're going to have to trade Deebo if they're planning on paying Brock Purdy, which they could do because they have Dwayne Jennings, and he's a good player. And they've just drafted Pearsall and Cowling. You know, they could get by at wide receiver. Mm-hmm. But I kind of think they just may not pay the quarterback. And Brock Purdy is not one of those guys. He is not an elite quarterback. And so I think overpaying him would be a mistake. We'll see what they decide.
But to your point, he'll be the next guy up. And because there doesn't seem to be that middle tier quarterback market anymore, it's just, hey, when this guy's up to get paid, he's going to get 50 plus million. He would be in that range.
Would not give it.
Right. I mean, I agree with you. I hope that happens because I just think it'd be super interesting to watch the whole thing play out, especially if they didn't, whatever they ended up doing at quarterback and then won a Super Bowl right away. That would be even better to see that play out.
I kind of want them to win the Super Bowl and then trade him.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That would be the real. I
mean, yeah. Then you're really getting ballsy about your.
Don't there are some general managers out there that you look at and you're like, that guy, he's got no guts. We know John Lynch has some guts. Yeah. He came into the position with an established level of guts. It would take some serious guts to do that. But I could see it.
Okay. Well, we'll see how that plays out. Alan, tell the people they can find you.
At @Saunders_PGH, PGH Steelers Now, SteelersNow.com. Go check out Steelers Now Plus. Scoop is probably coming tomorrow morning. Got something I'm still working on. And also there's a game tonight. I didn't think about the Thursday night games that I want to watch. So probably going to put it out in the morning tomorrow. There we go.
Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell here. Hit us in the comments, of course, with any questions for a future episode. What's your thoughts on what we talked about on this episode right here? If you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever your podcast from, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and subscribe over there, and hit us up on TikTok as well, Steelers Afternoon Drive. You can find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. For Alan Saunders and myself, thanks for jumping in, taking another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.